Government contracting is complicated, but it really doesn't have to be. You don't know what you don't know, so be in the know. Join us for the Deltek GovCon coffee show, where industry thought leaders discuss all things government contracting, with your hosts, Elizabeth Jimenez and Wolf Thiers. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you today?
Doing great. It's another glorious day.
It is a beautiful day outside, and you look very good.
Thank you. Appreciate that. You always look good, so, I could just say that compliment all the time.
Love it. Love it. So today we are talking about what with whom.
So today we get to talk to the Susan Mitchell from NeoSystems, and we get to talk about the contracts module within Costpoint.
I love the contracts module. I love that thing. So cool. Can you tell us how cool it is? What is your favorite part of it first?
So my favorite part of the contracts module, I have to say, would be the fact that unlike years ago where we used to have to do contract briefs and everything external to the system, it actually collects all of that data for us now. It's all in one, one nice little place. So we can actually just spit out our contract briefs straight from the system, which is fantastic. So we no longer have to go through the whole process of pulling together data for, to respond to a DCA audit and things like that. Yeah. We also have the ability to track our opportunities. So you can go in and you can pull from GovWinIQ, you can pull information from there, pull it over into the opportunities module, track your opportunity from start to finish, the team that's going to be on it, everything like that. So it's a very robust software and application from what we were having to do, like 2-3 years ago. Like, it's come a long way. So
seems like a nice, smooth process. GovWinIQ to opportunities, to contracts, to projects. It seems it's a nice flow there.
It is, and there's a lot of things in the system that help you, that help that flow happen. So, and even you didn't kind of continue pulling that string. So you even have from contract to subcontract, from subcontract it will flow, your clauses over to your purchase orders. It can print the contract clauses on your purchase order. So there's a lot of even additional things where it's all seamless within the system and it just flows from place to place. So that the other thing that you get out of is the duplicate entry. So having to enter it into the contract, then having to enter it into the subcontract, then to the purchase order. So all of that is streamlined for you in this application. So.
And if I'm in the contracts module and I'm using the subcontract and I'm in the subcontracts portion of it, and I need to jump to that purchase order, I don't have to navigate my way around it, do I?
Exactly. So within the modules, there's hyperlinks. So if I'm in a contract and I want to see, well, what opportunity, like what were we doing when we bid this? I can just click the link and it'll take me back to my opportunity and pull up the information that I have for that. Or if I'm over, in the subcontract and I want to see something related to the contract or anything like that, or I want to go look at the purchase order, I literally have hyperlinks that I can just click and it will take me to the other areas so that I can see the document that's related to that. So it's a very nice feature.
Great benefit for the users.
Oh yeah, it's definitely a fantastic benefit. It would just be so awesome if they had like something like dictation or something like that built into it.
So one of the things that is coming out that I am ecstatic to get in and play with, I won't lie, is the ability to have kind of the voice recognition, that kind of stuff where you can, say I was a salesperson that was out, I went to a meeting or something like that, and I want to just make a quick note like into my CRM tool of, I had this meeting and here's what happened. That's where, from my understanding, where the product is going. I have not personally been able to see that, and Wolf might be able to tell us more with his inside track.
You knew about this?
Well, and being a Deltek product, we make it sort of just say, go, hey Deltek, instead of hey whatever other smart device and smartphone device you might call it. Just say hey Deltek, and it will listen to you and be able to take that dictation. I agree with you, Susan. It's certainly the way of the future.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know that we may get to the point at some point where you can be sitting at home and go, hey Deltek, create this journal entry for me. Don't think we're not there with 8.1, but I know that seems to be the way of the future.
Yeah. So it's funny you say that because I totally look forward to the day. Like when I read that Deltek was, bringing that along and everything, like all I could think of from a controller perspective and stuff like that was being able to go, hey, Deltek, tell me what my revenue was for fiscal year 2020, period 12, subperiod 5, and have it tell me that. Like, how cool would that be? For those of us that have been using the product for like 25 years, like that would just be crazy. It's like the Jetsons, except for Deltek.
My mind immediately went to like, I'm on vacation and you can work on vacation. You're like, let me just send this home.
Okay, I'm not usually about working on vacation, but I'll go with you on it. I'll go with you on it.
You can have those simple answers. Thank you.
Exactly. Or you have, you're out somewhere, you're in your car, somebody, like what I always envision is, the CEO needs some number and he needs it, for whatever reporting he's working on and stuff. And you get that like email or that call and you're like, oh, I'm in my car driving. I need to respond. Like, how cool would it be able to just, say, hey, Deltek, tell me this and email it to, Todd Jones or whatever.
And it's not that far off. We're considering that Deltek Costpoint is fully mobile capable.
Right.
With the HTML5 and going with the continued progressive web applications that's going that way, the ability to be mobile is certainly increasing.
Right.
And I think we've even done the progressive web applications in the CRM most recently, sticking with that business development theme.
Right. Yeah, so there's a lot of good features that are coming along, and we've talked a little bit, about the voice, kind of automation kind of piece of it. The other thing that we have is that you have the ability, and I always like to point this out, the word templates. Mm-hmm. So where it used to be, if I had to do a subcontract, that I would have to go, I had my Word, I might have my Word template, and then I'd have to go pull stuff and put it in and everything like that. I can have a Word template now within the system that has all of my company's subcontract language and stuff, and it can pull various fields from Costpoint, from the subcontracts module. So it could pull, the name, the if there's the address, kind of key information, like if there's a contact, who's supposed to be signing it or whatever, you can pull that information in. So you can kind of essentially automate your subcontracts process instead of having to go and hand key and all that stuff. So again, it goes back to that one and done, enter it, be done, and move on. So it helps with that automation factor.
And that's not just in the contracts module, correct?
That is correct. So you can use those Word templates. And that's funny you say that, because that's a little known kind of it's one of those features that came out. And I actually don't know exactly when it came into the product, but all I know is once I found it, I loved it. So because it can be used in so many different places. And, again, it's just a Word template. You don't have to retype. You don't have to go to Word, and redo things manually. You can just hook it to the system. So
I'm thinking you using AR for a collections letter. You could use it for many different things.
Yeah.
Wherever it could be, possibly want to pull data from the system and put it in a template.
Well, I really like that you can, you have your own subcontract language in there. So you can kind of pull what you want, and you have the different opportunities with the fields. So you can say, I want this and that. And it probably makes it so much easier for the end user as well.
Yeah, it does. And the other thing too is that you then know, once the template is loaded, you then know, if you have a large subcontracts group or something and you want the same template with the same verbiage and stuff to be used every time, it also helps you control that. So you don't have kind of things that are being edited or altered or something where you really don't want it to be. Right. You then know you can control your templates. So that's the other thing that I like about that, is that it gives you that kind of formalized control.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier about the contracts module, and that was the integration to GovOneIQ. So that's obviously a different service that Deltek provides,
yes.
But what kind of data do you get out of GovOneIQ for opportunities?
So GovOneIQ, so essentially, the way that it can work is that, you go into GovOneIQ, you'll look around, you'll see kind of, what opportunities are out there, what's coming down the pike, and then you can identify one that your company might want to go after. So once you do that, you can essentially, click it, there's a checkbox that you can say, I want to load this to, Costpoint, GovOne or CRM. So once you do that, there's an interface that you've set up within the contracts module within Costpoint that will go and pull that the next time that it runs its interface, and you can have that do like nightly or on demand or whatever. It will pull that opportunity, that RFP or whatever, over into your system. So what comes with that is it will have basically all the descriptive information that you need. So it'll, have all of the RFP information, it will have dates, it will have contact. I mean, it's basically everything that you need to know about that RFP and everything so that you can go forward and bid on it. So,
can you tell us more about how customer data is stored and how that kind of works within the contract module?
So within the contracts module, there's a few things. So you have you have existing customers that you have in Costpoint, ones you've been doing business with. And the system actually, when you go to look, like when it goes to look at the customer table, it will look at that. So it, again, another seamless thing. It's not like you're having to re-enter customers that exist, but it will look at your customer master table. And then if you have customers that are called prospective customers, meaning it's somebody new that's not in your customer master, and you want to set them up so that you can link them to the opportunity, you have the ability to go do that. And then there is the ability once they've been awarded or something like that, you can approve that prospective customer, and it will go and populate that on over into your customer master. So again, it goes back to the key at once, and there is approval process. So sometimes, and I always like to add that because some of us accountants we're very territorial about our accounting system. So, if you have the BD folks and the, sales and marketing folks, and they're out there just, there's kind of this thing of them just adding customers, we get a little terrified about that. So there is actually an approval process. So once a customer is approved, and everybody, decides that the information's good, then it can go on over into the customer master. So that makes us accountants happy.
It does keep that customer master clean. I mean, how many times have you seen them key, Naval Sea Systems Command as one, and then Nav C is a new customer because we abbreviated or we capitalize or we use an acronym. It happens all the time.
I'm glad that it's just sales that's doing that sort of thing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So it allows us to keep our master file clean, which ultimately will feed reporting and things like that. So it keeps us from having those duplicate customers that go in and things like that. And on the flip side, I do have to add, so on the flip side, when you're in the opportunities module, when you're identifying your team that's going to work with you, and say you have a vendor that's going to be doing things with you and stuff like that, you have the same ability on the vendor side. So you can identify a vendor that you've never worked with before, or you've never had anything with, and you can set them up as a prospective vendor. And again, they're not going to go to your permanent vendor record at that point. They're, out there for your opportunity. But before they transition, over to a permanent one, you have an approval process that you can go through. And then once, everything is good, then they can go on over to your vendor master. So it again helps you keep your vendor master clean.
And since you're pulling from GovCon IQ, you also can pull other data about that vendor. Right.
That is correct. So there's other information that can come over about that vendor. There's information about competitors. So that's another thing that can come over, is that there's a whole competitor section where you can track your competitors and information about them.
Got to know who the competition is.
Yes. Yes. Have to know who the competition is for a good bid.
That's so true.
So what else can I tell you about CRM?
You're one of NeoSystems' star consultants. Tell us about your background.
So I am a stereotypical accountant. So I was, accounting degreed. I have been using Costpoint since 1997. I am a fan of the product. I would say my favorite things are the rates. I always feel like rates set it apart. But from my perspective, my background is I've worked on the corporate side, I've worked on the consulting side, I've worked for public companies, not-for-profits, you name it. So that's pretty much what I have done.
So you're really kind of in tune with what's needed from a back-end perspective for everything to work kind of in uniform together.
Yes. So I have done quite a bit of policy and process over the course of my career. I have also done a lot of DCAA liaison and responding to DCAA audits for large and small, both large and small businesses. So I'm very familiar with what DCAA is going to expect from a control perspective, from a kind of a process perspective, and things like that, as well as how those controls are similar to like SEC filing ones and things you're going to have for Sarbanes-Oxley and things like that. So my public company background, has allowed me to look at things from that perspective. So key control, identifying your key controls, where you can use the system to, do those for you. So the control settings and,
right.
Things like that. Out of, how shall I say, out of the box controls versus manual controls, ones that the system does for you versus ones that you have to remember to do.
Yeah, a big piece of the power of Costpoint is those controls.
Yes.
And you said you worked for nonprofits as well, so it's certainly not your stereotypical government contract that's necessarily for profit, but you also worked on the nonprofit sector as well.
Correct. So one of the things that everyone always kind of wonders is like how can Costpoint can Costpoint work for a not-for-profit? Absolutely. Absolutely, it can work for a not-for-profit. It's just a little bit of a different design from the design perspective, but it definitely can facilitate, the not-for-profit reporting and things also.
I would think so, from reporting to like member basis for trade associations, and then, also getting all of those metrics. Mm-hmm. The top is still the top, and the C-suite still wants to know what's going on. Right. So I can imagine having a robust tool like Costpoint would be very advantageous. And also, a background like yours where you really deeply understand from an auditing perspective what they're going to ask, what they're going to want to see. I think that's tremendously beneficial for clients. Mm-hmm. You're essentially like setting them up for success. So I think that's, having the tool and then having the capabilities and, your expertise is part of all of that.
And so not-for-profits, staying on that topic for a second, mm-hmm. don't always have contracts. They sometimes have grants.
They have grants,
right,
that is correct.
And cooperative agreements. Could you use the contracts module for that?
So we actually do have a few not-for-profits that use the contracts module to track all of like their grants and stuff like that. So there is the ability to kind of use those tools for the not-for-profits also. Again, it more just depends on what that not-for-profit's kind of function is, and like you have ones that are like member organizations, right? Like trade organizations versus one that, has a different type of focus. So it really just depends on what that not-for-profit's focus is. It depends on how like it would be configured, if that makes sense. So, right. But there's various ways.
It comes down to the configuration.
It does. Yeah. And I mean, thinking about, that was a great question about the grants, mm-hmm. or the great point about the grants, because I mean, I think that would be really, that's almost kind of like a sales function, for other business. So having that built in, I think that's really beneficial for any nonprofit. So very dual, I can mm-hmm. see it.
Yeah, it's very flexible. I mean, that's the one thing that I would say about Costpoint is that, I've been doing implementations for many years now. We won't date my, we won't date me too much, but I would say it's definitely very flexible. The one thing that I've always liked about it is that so much of it you can do out of the box. So it doesn't take, customizations. It's not like an SAP or something like that, where for a government contractor you have to do a lot of customization and stuff for it. It comes out of the box. Like you can do most everything that you need it to do out of the box. So that
is excellent. That's a real big piece of the power of Costpoint. All right. So, kind of getting our focus that we talked a little bit earlier about contracts. There's a lot of other pieces. We talked about the contract brief and some of the contract data. We talked about a little bit about the clauses and that you can attach to a contract. So when you talk about those clauses, those are just the FAR, and that's.
So the way that it works is that it comes with, I believe, FAR and DFARs that are, that are there out of the box. And then you have the ability to add clauses as you need them. So one of the things that you can do is if you have, say you have a contract with EPA or someone and there's other clauses that need to go in your contract, you have the ability to load those like via an automated method, or you can hand key them through the front. There are some companies that will have, like internal clauses that they'll, reference you to.
Or even commercial clauses.
Yeah, or commercial clauses or something that they've entered and they'll refer you to. And the one thing that a lot of people have been asking as of late that we've been getting into is the kind of the dating of the FAR clauses. Mm-hmm. So, like this FAR clause changed as of this date, this contract had this in it, that kind of thing. And there is actually a date field that is on those clauses so that you can identify essentially like if there's a different one or something like that, you can identify kind of the date for that specific one. So if it was the same clause but it changed, then you have the ability to put the correct one in or whatever you need to do. So
that's certainly a great piece of data there, but and then of course you have to use a BI tool to pull that out. I'm sure that the contracts team is going to be really trying to dig into that to answer those questions that used to take them days to answer.
Yeah. So the great thing about the clauses, and we didn't talk about this actually, is that once you identify, if you have a contract and you identify the clauses that are applicable to that contract, you can tell that whether you want it to flow down to your subcontractors or not flow down to your subcontractors. So it will automatically, when you go to do your subcontract in the system, the system will be smart enough to know this subcontract is associated with this contract, pull all of these clauses. So it takes out, I hate to say it again, it's kind of that thought of, oh, which contract is this? Let me go back through and kind of like filter through. The system helps you know what flow downs you need to have.
Got it. Well, is there anything else you'd like to leave us with? Any words of wisdom?
On the contracts module? No, like I said, I think probably it is one of my, having been a longtime Deltek user, it was one of my favorite things that Deltek came out with. I was very, very happy to not have to, go in and use UDEFs and stuff anymore to capture that data or bootleg some other field in there for some data that I wanted. So it really filled a gap that was there, and I was, like I said, I was just ecstatic when they came out with it. So
amazing. Well, we covered a huge breadth of
covered a lot.
Contracts, subcontracts, nonprofit.
I want to learn more about like Deltek nonprofit. That's something probably we have to get into further down the road. What do you think?
I think that's another coffee morning for us.
I think so. Well, thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.